Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Hello and welcome to World Inkers Network, a Parrot TV show. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. If you're watching today, please subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber and click that notifications button. Today we have Dusty Jaggers, who is a punk rock musician, poet, writer, and diarist, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Her work often focuses on such esoteric topics as spirituality, religion, and mysticism. It is Dusty's deepest desire to inspire and empower all people, but especially the youth, to achieve their own dreams, goals, and their soul's unique divine purpose for the highest, greatest good of not only themselves and their own consciousness, but the consciousness of the collective at large. Black Tourmaline Dreams is her first poetry book from Cajun Mutt Press. Well, thanks for joining us today, Dusty. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. So what can you tell us about the process that went into your book? How long did it take you to have this full book ready to go to the publisher?
Well, it started as a COVID lockdown project, just a writing project. And from start to finish, from like the time I gave it to the publisher to now, it's been a 3-year process, a full 3 years. So
3 years of poetry.
I was just writing and writing and writing. And then they were like, you need to stop writing. We think we got a book.
Right. So how many poems do you think thereabouts are in the book? And
well, I wrote 65, and I'm pretty sure we got at least 63 in there.
Okay, that's great. So what is the meaning of the title, Black Tourmaline Dreams? Or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Where did you come up with that?
Black tourmaline it's on the cover. It's a stone. It's a grounding stone for protection. And I'm part Native American, and it's like an important stone. And so it's just for protection and grounding. And a lot of the poems in the book are about spiritual awakening or religion or dreams that I had. And so I just thought, it's kind of like it'll protect these things, right?
So would you say maybe the poems are kind of symbolically representing a kind of rootedness?
Right, yeah.
Excellent. That's wonderful. So when did you start writing poetry? Did you sit down and just consciously decide you're going to do poetry, or did it just happen to come to you somehow?
Well, I started writing poems, I guess, when I was a teenager, but it started out as in a lyrical format. And so I was listening to a lot of different punk music, and I would listen to people like Patti Smith or like Jim Carroll, and I would listen to their records, right? And that got me interested in their poetry. And then I started reading more of that. So I was writing like lyrical type poetry, and I've been doing that since I was a teenager.
So it just was something like, you did, do you think you were like imitating some of your favorite artists, or was there like a drive in you to sit down and write something?
Well, I mean, I always kept journals. I was in a lot of therapy as a kid. So they were like, keep journals, express yourself, and so I was always doing that. And I think at first, when you're young and you're learning, you do imitate a lot just through just through, absorbing whatever it is you're learning about, you sort of imitate it and then you sort of find your own style and develop that. But I think I always wrote just because I needed to. I felt like I needed to anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most writers, they feel compelled. It's like a impulse of some kind that's
Yeah.
almost like esoteric. It's like lightning striking you from behind in a
Yeah.
way. That goes into the pen, and you have to put something down on the page.
Yeah. You just have to express yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I as a writer myself and as an artist, I mean, I
Mhm.
feel like it's necessary that we have people that are expressive in the world because it reminds us that we're not alone. Sometimes we don't want to say something and somebody else says it really well, and
Right.
it strikes a note with us. I mean, have you had anything like that, like in music or in poetry, that you've run across that something just really strikes a nerve with you?
Yeah. I mean, I think punk rock did that for sure. Punk rock, 90s punk rock music, even the 70s, the original sort of waves of punk rock. And then people like the beat poets. I love all of the beat writers, especially Jack Kerouac. I love Jack Kerouac. And he's probably still my favorite. I think he really struck a chord with me when I was young.
Hmm.
Kerouac did. You read On the Road and
Oh, absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
but I think reading Kerouac now is totally different from reading him as a teenager or in your 20s versus now,
How
you
would
sort
you
of
say that? Well, how would
yeah.
you say your experience is different from now between now and then and reading
Well,
Kerouac?
I was 13 when I first read Kerouac.
Mm-hmm.
And I read On the Road, and so like as a young person, you read about that, and he's like, they're out and they're exploring themselves, and they're traveling, and they're doing all these crazy things, and they're like, that's the dream. Like you think that's the coolest thing ever, and then as you get older, it sort of changes, and it hits you in a different way. I think now, I see it as where Kerouac sort of ended up in his life
Mm-hmm.
is is sort of it's a result of where he had been, right? And so now when I look at Kerouac's life, I kind of feel sad for that moment that he had because I know where he ended. You know what
That's
I mean?
interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Like you're looking at it like a consequentialist, I guess, and
Right,
seeing
right.
that
I don't think
it's
he'd take it back, but
no, probably not. He'd be like,
no,
no, I loved every minute of my life.
right.
I think that's how we have to be and just live and
I
and
could use
take
more of
responsibility.
that. I really
Yeah,
could.
absolutely. So, do you participate in the local art scene in any way in Louisville?
Well, I haven't for a while just because when the COVID thing hit, we all got shut down, and I'm starting to get back out there now. I had like a poetry reading recently, and we released a book, and so I think I'll be getting out there a lot more. But when COVID hit, it shut us down all the way up, till recently. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm getting back out there now.
So, what relationship do you have with language? Is it something that you find essential to life, or do you just like to explore the way words kind of work with each other? And I mean, how do you define yourself through language?
Hmm, it's a good question. Flow, flow,
Oh, that's a
flow.
good
I
that's a
mean,
good answer.
just sort of osmosis and flow.
Hmm. That's an interesting answer. And how would you say that your work is enabling that?
With the flow or the osmosis of it. I
Hmm.
think I think it's definitely got flow. It's if you
Okay.
read it, it's in a very much a very lyrical sort of way. It's got a lot of rhythm to it.
Hmm.
Um, it's definitely got like a musical sort of vibe to it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Lyrical.
Right. Is it more? I mean, when you say osmosis and flow, is it? I mean, is it more like a guitar or a drums kind of osmosis?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think it depends on what you're reading and where you're reading it.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like, say one poem might be more heavy on like that drum, and then another poem or another part of the poem might be on something else. You know what I mean? I think it's just all the rhythm and flow of each poem. One
mm.
might be heavier on something else than the other one.
So, what kind of topics do you cover in your writing?
Well, in this book, it's spirituality, religion, different esoteric topics. You know, stuff that I became interested in. I was having a spiritual awakening, and the things that I became interested in, I just started writing about.
Hmm.
Like as I would learn them. So, you know, I would learn about things, and then I would write about them.
Was that more from an intuitive, stance, or was there a lot of reading you did that brought you to some conclusions?
It was probably a mix of both.
Okay,
Yeah, it was probably a
interesting.
good mixture.
Yeah, we had a interesting person on that last our last show was Rebecca Hirsch, and she talked a lot about her spirituality and being a feminist and combining sort of a Judaic view and her spirituality. Do you
Mm-hmm.
find that like you have a religious background that influences your work at all?
No, I was not raised religious. I was not raised spiritual. I mean, you know, it was pretty I mean, I had family members being in the South, you know, we're in Kentucky, you're in the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always something I rebelled against. So I never, you know, I never had that as an upbringing because I rebelled against it. It's only something as I gotten older I've sort of discovered for myself, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you think that rebellion helped shape your artistic values?
I think probably just the fact that, you know, you when you rebel against something and you automatically have an opposition to something, you develop your voice and you develop your authenticity, and you learn to speak up about how you feel or what you think or what your opinions are. And
Mm-hmm.
so because you put yourself in a position to, you know, you're against the grain, so you have to develop those things, I would think.
Hmm. So, what's your favorite punk rock album?
Oh my god, there's so many good ones. I'm gonna say the first Clash album,
Okay,
the first one, subtitle.
that's a great one. Yeah, that is a
Yeah,
great album. That was one of my early favorites too.
yeah, I love that. I also love. I'm gonna say "Out Come the Wolves" by Rancid. I love
Oh
that.
yeah, oh yeah, oh my gosh! And those guys are like almost parallel bands in a lot of ways.
They are. I think Tim from Rancid, which is so inspired by Joe,
Uh huh.
yeah, by Strummer.
Yeah,
I think he just had such a love for him that it sort of happened like that. You know what I mean?
they're both of those bands like they have similar sensibilities
They really
politically
do.
and energetically. They have a very strong, that roots culture and that kind of that really dry ska mixed with punk sound.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then
That ska guitars are great.
oh, absolutely, yeah. And
I
Tim is
love it.
really great at that. Tim was if you're probably familiar with Operation Ivy as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
And gosh, those guys are
So
great.
good. So good. That album, Energy, is just such a great record.
It's
So good.
excellent.
And it's like there's not like a bad track on it.
I know it's all it just keeps you focused and
Yeah,
just
you
listening
can
through
listen
it.
to it start to finish, front to back. It's great. And that's rare, you know,
Right.
nowadays.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of distractive stuff out there, and it's
Yeah.
boring, and tedious. So, where do you see yourself in, say, 5 years, both musically and as a poet?
Well, I would be happy if I could just be able to keep doing what I'm doing and make a living doing it,
Hmm.
survive doing it. You know, I mean, that would be thriving to me. Like you know, it's not something that I ever um, really planned on. Like with this book, I never planned on publishing it. I was writing it for myself, and
Hmm.
so if it can help me to, you know, make a living doing it, I'm happy to do it. You know, I wanted to be able to make a living doing something I loved, and that would be great if I could do that from music and poetry. I think
So, yeah,
that's most people's dream, you know.
yeah, make it as an artist and get at least make a living.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
not
that's what I'm
asking
talking
for like
about.
just
Yeah.
for fame. You're just
No,
asking
fuck
for
riches and fame. Nobody needs that. Nobody.
that'll complicate things. That's
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare of a trap that I wouldn't want to be in.
well, you look at like Kanye West, for instance. Now,
Oh
what he
God,
got himself mixed up in.
right. Kanye's sad. It's. I think it's a mix of mental health, which
Hmm.
is needs attention. That
Hmm.
he needs some sort of medication. I have bipolar disorder, so I understand the need for mental health treatment, good mental health treatment,
Right.
and I think fame has just allowed him to go off the rails.
Yeah, he does seem a little unhinged at times, and I agree. I think he has some kind of illness going on that he's not, he's not maybe not cognizant of. He's not looking at it as a illness. I mean, there are a lot of sick people that just don't view their sickness as a sickness.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I was one of those people. I needed help. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like I had to get medicated and get help, or I wouldn't be here.
right. You
It's
think
just
mental health plays a role in your artistic your creativity and your process?
um yeah, I do come to think about it because I have moments of because I have the bipolar, you have these manic
Hmm.
sort of episodes where you're up one day and the next day you're down. So anyway, my manic periods last, a long time. And
Hmm.
so I tend to, I'll write a lot during more manic phases. Even though I'm still medicated, I still have them. They're not as bad as they used to be, but they don't really just disappear. You just have to learn to work with them, whether you're in the mania or the depressed side of it.
Hmm.
And I think it aids it in a way, in a short term way,
Hmm.
like a spur of the moment thing where you can have a run where you can write for like a couple of months and then you crash and burn. So in a long term sense, like mental illness doesn't aid you in creativity at all. It actually destroys it over the long period of time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You can get it in short bursts, but I've had to learn to be disciplined to be consistent because of it. You know,
Kind of watch your cycles. It's like I
right?
mean, I have similar issues at times. Like it's something you have to kind of monitor in yourself that you when you know you're going to crash and burn. It's like you're like I think.
Right, right. And I had to learn that the
Mhm.
hard way. I
Yeah,
really did.
it's an experience oriented thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I had to learn the hard way.
Does health in your let's just say like a lot of people with mania they might have some weird insights that counterintuitive insights that show up in their work. Have you ever found that true of yourself?
Um, I don't know. I've never really looked at it from that perspective.
Hmm.
That's something I would have to like sit and think about.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. To, like, look at your work. I mean, should I ask you, how does it feel once you're published and you've actually looked at your finished product? How does that feel for you?
Oh, it's great. I like I said, I never planned on it,
Hmm.
and it was a blessing, and I never planned on it, and so for me, it was just very humbling, and gratifying, but very humbling because I never planned on it.
Yeah, it's a really satisfying experience to have especially a
Yeah,
book. It feels like a really hard labor sometimes, and a lot of your heart goes into writing something, and your energies are directed at making this thing happen.
yeah,
And it's really something about getting a book out is really powerful.
yeah. It was deeply gratifying, but it was also just very humbling because
Hmm.
the fact that people took interest in it to the point that they were like, "Oh, we want to publish it," just
Right.
blew my mind because I was just writing it to write it. I needed to write,
Hmm.
and I just gave myself this little project, and I thought nobody would ever read it.
So, how did you find Cajun Mutt Press? I mean, did they come to you, or did you find them and submit, or how did that work?
No, it worked. Basically, have you ever heard of Ron Whitehead?
Yes.
He's the Kentucky Beat Poet Laureate.
Hmm.
I had done theater, a play with him over 20 years ago, and
Okay.
I stayed friends with him. And I'd always tried to get to work with him on projects that were music related. It just never worked out.
Hmm.
And so I was telling him, I'm writing some poetry, and I just want to send it to you, and I want you to tell me if it's shit or not. And I was like, if
Okay.
it's bad, tell me it's bad. If it's good, tell me it's good. And he was like, I got you. And he said, send it. And I sent him the poems, and he was like, you need to meet with me for a coffee. And I
Hmm.
met with him for a coffee, and he was like, you need to publish with Cajun Mutt. And I was like, Who's that? And so he basically, you know, handed me over, and I got to talking to James, and that's how it happened. It was a really crazy experience, you know what I mean? I didn't look them up. I didn't. But since I've been on them, I've been reading a lot of the poetry, like that James will post, you know, his poetry of other people that are, you know, writers on there. And I think it's great. It's some of the greatest stuff. You know, so it happened like that. It was through Ron Whitehead.
Okay, yeah. We've interviewed him as well and on the show.
Yeah, I love him. It's great.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. I like him too.
Yeah, he's one of those people. He's so talented, and he's a, like I always say, like he's a better person than he is a writer. A lot of times you meet your heroes, like with music or whatever you're doing, and they're not good people. You know what I mean? You get let down. You're like, oh man. But he's a great person. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not only a great artist, he's a great poet, a great person. And so I just feel honored, you know, that I can have a cup of coffee with him. You know what I'm
saying? Absolutely. Sometimes it's nice to sit down with a fellow human and talk art.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of people, they don't get that opportunity. You know what I mean?
Right. We're going to take a brief break, but we'll be back with some of your poetry, and I look forward to hearing some of it.
Okay, thank you.
Take a brief break here.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York PARROT, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your product and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York PARROT, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our news site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York PARROT is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
I come decorated in the patterns of the old, in the proverbial wisdom of my ancestors. I, a seeker, I, a messenger, and I, the message. We who cracked the mystery of how the river found its way into the bellies of the coconut to the heavens. We were queens, defenders of our lands, before history was thwarted to fit into the pages of the new narratives. Afamefula of the Enugu coal mine and Wanyeruwa of the Oloko women riot wouldn't have existed today, for we have been bruised and broken, as do the land suffer. And weep, for she yearns to be weeded and nurtured to flourish. Her children no longer have respect for her. Nsani is now the new norm. We are daughters of Annie. Once upon a time, a finger raised on a daughter provoked the community to rise, for a sacrilege has been committed. But now, the communities take pride in trampling on their daughters, for they have been made to believe that their daughters are weak and fragile and less to participate in community development. For if only they know, Ogunangba, nwoke si nwaanyị si nwoke emeghị nwaanyị emeghị nwoke nwaanyị nwaanyị anaghị eme taa nwaanyị bụ ife, nwaanyị bụ mmụọ ala. I came from the land of queens and kings. From my ancestors had the philosophy of duality. For there is femininity in masculinity and masculinity in femininity. My ancestors knew that. When they said, nwoke di na nwaanyị, nwaanyị di na nwoke, ihe kwuru, ihe akwudobe ya. For what is and what is not are one. Anyu mitu gbogoro, ugbogoro amita anyu. Ụmụọfịa kwanyere agbala dị na chielo ugwu, eze nwaanyị ugwu na ndịda. Kedu ka mmiri si wee baa n'opi ụgbọgụrụ? Ọ na-abụ enwe machariwa, ọ dị ka ukwu osisi anọghị ya nso, ọ ga-emenwu ya, ọ tụrụ kpọkpọ, ejikwanụ ike ya atụkpọ osisi. Anyụ mitu ụgbọgụrụ amịta anyụ.
Hope you enjoyed that performance by Amarachi Adama. And we have today on the show Dusty Jaggers, who is going to read from her work, her recent publication. Let's have some of your work from your recent Cajun Mutt Press release.
Okay, would you like me to start now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This one's called Breathe. If you can't be great, then what's the point of being anything at all? Pride comes before a fall, crawling in on broken legs and bruised knees. You let the light burn out behind your eyes, and then you curse others because they can see. Just breathe. What are you believing in? There is no such thing as perfection, and rejection doesn't exist where forgiveness bestows her kiss. Tell me, which breath holds more bliss for the breather? The first one that you take, or the last one as you're leaving, when both, either way, are just a gift you are receiving. And would you like me to read another one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This one is called Endless Tomorrows. Youth and the belief of endless tomorrows, hearts that are broken wide open but lost all their sorrows. Prepare for the worst but hope for the best. Take all you need and leave the rest. Confess yourself to yourself. Make peace with all the wars inside your head. Many men have died 1,000 deaths before their bodies were buried in the ground. Feed your soul. The sun is calling. A new morning is dawning at your door. And if you were wondering what this life is for, smile, for you have found wisdom most will never seek to question or glimpse. And in these final days, have joy in your breathing and know that all is forgiven for those in truth and in light, for no lies confessed or here. Thank you.
You want to do another one?
I prepared two, so.
Okay, well, that's fine. We'll just continue with our interview.
Yeah, I wish I would have prepared more, but I did it sort of last moment.
Oh, that's quite all right. The wonderful poems. I really like the rhythm, the flow. As you said flow earlier. That was an osmosis. I feel that going in. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of force in it's like a sort of projecting itself into the work.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at it. It's new to me.
Oh yeah. It takes a little time.
Yeah.
How would you say that your appreciation and love for punk rock music is kind of infiltrates into your poetry as well? Does it do that, or do you?
Yeah, I think it definitely they bleed into each other, sort of. Mm-hmm. It's definitely the poetry is definitely lyrical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in the future I would like to get away from the rhyming, all the rhyming that I've done, but I think it's because I started writing lyrics. And so that just felt more natural to me. And so that's where I went with poetry and writing that. But I definitely think they bleed into each other. Topics are sort of similar.
Mm-hmm.
In poetry that I would write about things in songs, I would write about them in poems, similar topic, things like that.
Do you find that there's like a lifestyle, Kentucky lifestyle that kind of, finds its way into your being that works its way into your poetry as well?
I don't know. I've seen that a lot, like with Ron. Ron is very much a Kentucky poet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think with me, it's more. It's not necessarily about my external environment. It's more about my internal.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So how would you say you relate to that internal environment that it comes out in the form of your art?
Well, a lot of it, I seem to write a lot when I'm either really manic or really depressed. There's no like in between. So
Hmm.
whatever is going on in my internal world sort of works its way out into the poetry. So if I'm having a bad day, then the poetry is going to be angry or something like that. You know what I mean? If it's a good day, then the poetry will be happy. Sort of like that, I guess. A very basic sort of a. It's almost childlike in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I noticed that I look back at my high school notebooks and I noticed there was a tendency to either be extraordinarily dark and angry or
Right.
extraordinary upbeat and very sensitive, love poetry and stuff, and then and like flowers and bees and whatever, and then there
Right.
would be like death and destruction. I've got my knife at your back.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's very I approach things from an artistic level. I approach it very childlike because I feel like that's the purest you can be.
Right.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
You know, how would you define that inner child that kind of comes out in your art?
I would say I'm learning how to reparent my inner child and heal it for sure.
Hmm.
I would think that would be the main thing.
Have you ever done visual art as well?
I do paint occasionally. I like oil paints a lot.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I paint occasionally, but it's very sporadic, it's not something that's consistent. It's like, oh, today I feel like painting and I'll paint something. And then I might not pick up a brush for like 6 months.
Do certain subjects come to your mind a lot that you deal with in your work, or do you just kind of, is it just whatever is on your mind, or are there like recurring obsessions that you have?
um yeah, I definitely have obsessions with that, with probably just the basic themes that everybody else has obsessions with, love, death, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um life, youth.
Yeah.
I think those are pretty common, but like everybody else, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody ruminates on a lot of things that are,
Right.
and that's what I was getting at earlier with the art. You're expressing things that people are on everyone's minds. That people think about frequently. They don't want to say maybe what they're
Yeah.
thinking.
And it's cool too because it allows you to feel that connection. I think a lot of people need that.
Hmm.
You know what I
Absolutely,
mean? I think
absolutely.
it's needed now more than ever. I mean, I know we have the internet and things like that, and me and you are connecting like this right here, right now. But in a way, it's also it's made things a lot more divided in a sense too. You know what I mean? There
Yeah.
is connection, but it's like like you were saying earlier, it's not really a deep connection.
Hmm.
It's connected, but it's not rooted.
Right.
Yeah,
So that goes back to your title of your poems, your
yeah,
book.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Would you like to say anything to the viewers in conclusion of the program today? Like, I don't know, just give advice or just any words of thoughts on your mind that you'd like to share with the viewers today?
Well, I think just stay in an attitude of gratitude for the experiences that you're having right now in your life. And if
Hmm.
you have a dream, whatever that dream is, go for it. I mean, I know it's very basic, it sounds cliche,
Hmm.
but
It's
so
good
few
advice.
people do it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so just do it.
absolutely.
Whatever it is that you want to do, you might not be here tomorrow, so do it today. You
That's
know?
wonderful advice. I think it's good to hear that every once in a while. Remind ourselves that there are things to be grateful for in the present. We may
Right.
be facing trials and tribulations, but we also have a lot of beauty. And you're still alive. You're still living. You might be in the ground, and you're not in the ground. So,
Well, it's like the poem "Breathe" in the book that I just read.
hmm.
Um, I've experienced a lot of death in my life, and
Hmm.
so and recently, and so for me, like the fact that I woke up and I took a breath this morning, somebody took their last breath
Hmm.
last night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
I think it's important just to remember the most basic things, and people get lost and they forget all that.
Yeah, a sense of groundedness and reality, and
Yeah.
I love the gratitude, taking every moment and a step as something given to you that's, be gracious for.
Right.
Would you
Yeah.
like
I
to
try to
share any?
remind myself of that.
Yeah, it's something difficult for all of us, I think, but it's good to think about it. Would you like to
Right.
share any shout outs or thank yous in conclusion?
Um, okay. Thank you to James and Cajun Mutt Press.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to Ron Whitehead. And thank you to you for having me on here because I would have never done this otherwise. This is my first time, and it's very, things like interviews are uncomfortable for me. I'm not used to them.
Well, it's good to
And
have you on the show.
I'm a pretty introverted person, so trying to be
Mhm.
extroverted is weird for me.
Yeah,
But
it's
I'm grateful for
all of
you
us.
having me here.
Well, thanks for being on the show today. If you think of anybody else, any other fellow artists, or even in Louisville or wherever else that might be interested in being on the program, and just send them our way. We'll love to have
All
them.
right. I will do that. I will. And I thank you so much.
You're welcome, and it was great to have you on the show. Wonderful to talk with you about your lovely work, and just keep the spirit momentum going.
I'm trying. I'm going to try. It's an experience I'm grateful for sure.
Absolutely. You've been watching World News Network, and I am Dustin Pickering. And if you want to donate to our program and keep us up and running as a free program for all, you can donate at paypal.me/nyparrot. That's paypal.me/nyparrot. And if you see at the bottom there, if you want to be on the program, there's a banner running at the bottom. If you're a writer and wish to be featured on this show, send your bio and samples of your work, as well as a headshot, to publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. And don't forget that dot. It's a small thing, but it's an important thing because we won't get your email if you forget the dot. Remember, publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. If you want to support us and you don't have, say, a little money to spare, maybe you can buy some of the books we've published. We'll have Troy Camplin's books pretty soon out, and his poetry collection's out. We have the Albanian anthology, The New Condemned. That's a wonderful collection to take a look at. It's on Amazon. We have the Peace December anthology, The Armistice, a lot of other works that you can check a look at from our just go to our website, worldinkers.com, take a look around, look at some of the work we've published on the site, and we'd love to see what you think. Just drop some comments on our website, and drop some comments at our YouTube, and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't subscribed, we want you as a subscriber to be notified when we come live. And remember, this show is every Tuesday at 2 p.m., Saturday at 11 a.m., provided we have guests and that they are able to make it. Thanks for watching today's program. And if you haven't done any writing today, remember there's always a new day, and there's still several hours in this day. So get to writing. Thanks for watching.